Ethan and his 5 friends went on a trip that was supposed to be full of joy, laughter, and memories. But what they encountered instead was something out of a nightmare. This experience took place in 2015 when Ethan was 23 years old, and to this day, he shudders at the thought of that fateful night. Ethan and his friends had planned a trip to a famous pilgrimage site in Europe. They believed that the divine blessings from God would fulfill their wishes and bring them peace. Their journey started off beautifully. They took a train, reached the site, and completed their visit with full devotion. But little did they know, their faith was about to be tested in a way they never imagined. After their visit, they had an extra day before their train back home. Seeing the beauty of the mountains, they decided to explore more. They hired a local driver, who took them to breathtaking locations. By evening, exhaustion crept in, and one of their friends, Oliver, started feeling unwell. The driver suggested a nearby resort for them to stay the night. The resort was isolated, perched atop a hill, surrounded by thick fog and eerily silent. The moment they stepped inside, a heavy, suffocating energy gripped them. The reception was dimly lit, and the manager, an old man with hollow eyes, greeted them with a strange smile. "Only 2 rooms are available," he said in a hoarse voice. "We don't get many visitors this time of the year." The group split into 2 rooms, 3 in one and 3 in the other. Oliver was given a separate bed to rest. The room had an old, flickering TV, and to lighten the mood, they decided to watch something. Coincidentally, a horror movie was playing, and they joked about how the atmosphere of the resort suited the theme perfectly. But things quickly turned sinister. One of their friends, Daniel, went to use the washroom. As soon as he entered, the light inside started to flicker aggressively, and the water tap began running on its own. He called out to the others, but when they checked, everything seemed fine. Brushing it off, they continued watching TV. At exactly 10:30 p.m., a boy from the staff, whom they called Tim, came to ask if they needed anything to eat. They were too tired and just ordered some tea. Tim then casually mentioned, "Sir, after 10:30, the kitchen closes, and no one will be available. Don't leave your rooms at night." His words sent a chill down their spines, but they laughed it off, thinking it was just a local rule. At around midnight, just as they were about to sleep, a loud knock echoed through their room. Ethan got up and opened the door. No one was there. Thinking it was one of their own friends playing a prank, he checked the hallway. It was empty. He shrugged it off and went back to bed. But the knocking came again. This time, it was louder and more urgent. Ethan, now irritated, opened the door again. Nothing. A deep sense of unease settled in. He locked the door properly and told everyone to ignore it. But as they lay back down, a strange scratching sound came from inside the wardrobe. It was as if someone was trapped inside and trying to claw their way out. The TV flickered violently, and for a split second, they saw the reflection of a dark figure standing behind them in the screen. Panic set in. They turned around, but nothing was there. The scratching inside the wardrobe stopped abruptly, and an eerie silence filled the room. Meanwhile, in the other room, Oliver and his friends had an even worse experience. At exactly 3 a.m., the temperature in their room dropped drastically. Oliver, who was already sick, started mumbling something in his sleep. His friends shook him, but he wasn't waking up. Suddenly, the bed began shaking violently as if someone was underneath, pushing it up. One of the friends, Henry, ran to turn on the lights, but the switch wasn't working. They heard heavy breathing coming from the dark corner of the room. And then, the worst happened. Oliver sat up abruptly, his eyes rolled back, and in a voice that wasn't his, he whispered, "You shouldn't be here. Leave before it's too late." They all screamed and bolted out of the room. They ran to Ethan's room, banged on the door, and collapsed inside, gasping for breath. They told them everything. Just as they were trying to calm down, they noticed something horrifying. Oliver had deep red scratches on his arms, as if someone had clawed at him in his sleep. Terrified, they packed their bags and decided to leave immediately. But as they reached the reception, they were met with a shocking sight. The entire place was abandoned. The furniture was covered in dust, the walls were cracked, and the front desk was empty. It looked like no one had been there in years. Panicked, they ran to the main door, only to find it chained shut from the outside. Just then, they heard a low whisper right behind them, "You can never leave." Ethan turned around and saw a shadowy figure standing in the hallway, its hollow eyes staring straight into his soul. In sheer desperation, they recited prayers, chanting the name of God repeatedly. The atmosphere around them changed. A strong gust of wind blew, and suddenly, the chains on the door broke apart. Without wasting another second, they ran out and didn't stop until they reached the nearest town. The next morning, they narrated their ordeal to a local tea vendor. The old man listened and then sighed heavily. That resort was built on top of an old cremation ground. Many travelers have reported strange occurrences. The owners keep it open only for a short time before leaving because they know the place is cursed. Realizing they had narrowly escaped a horrifying fate, Ethan and his friends vowed never to stay in an unknown place without researching its history first. If this terrifying experience taught us anything, it is that some places hold secrets darker than we can ever imagine. If you ever feel something is wrong, trust your instincts and leave. And most importantly, always keep faith in God, for it is His protection that saves us in times of true horror.